The desert was quiet like a held breath. Heat pressed down on the ruins and turned metal into mirrors. Broken ship parts lay half buried in sand, like bones of a giant animal. The wind moved through cables and made a thin singing sound. Far away, something old creaked, then went still again. He came from the East Ridge, a tall human with tired eyes. His name was Rian, and he walked with care. He had a scarf around his neck and dust on his boots. He carried a short rifle, but he kept it low. His face looked calm, but his mind was counting dangers. He knew the desert did not forgive mistakes. This place had been a battlefield once. Rian could tell by the burned lines in the sand and the melted glass. He could tell by the smell too, that heavy smell of scorched wire and something strange. He paused at a pile of round engine parts and listened. He heard only the wind at first, the same small song, moving between antennae and broken wings. Then he heard a voice. It was small at first, like a memory trying to speak. "Please," the voice said, thin and far. "Please, I'm begging you." Rian froze, and his breath slowed. A trick, he thought. A lure used by scavengers. Or a trap left by the machines. He crouched behind a half-torn hole and waited. The voice came again, closer, this time, but weak. "Please, anyone," it said. And then the wind swallowed it. He stood and moved, step by careful step. He followed the sound through a field of broken pods. Sunlight flashed on curved metal and made his eyes water. He used his hand to shade his face and kept moving. The voice pulled him like a string. He told himself to turn back, but his feet did not agree. He reached a tall scaffold made from old ship ribs. Ropes hung there, and pieces of chain, and a cracked winch. Something moved under the shade it cast on the sand. Rian lifted the rifle a little and circled. He saw a figure curled near the base of the structure. He saw wrists tied with wire, ankles bound, a body shaking with slow breath. At first he thought it was a human woman covered in paint. Her skin was a deep violet that shimmered in the sun. Her hair was pale gold and full of dust. Sand stuck to her face and to her arms where sweat had dried. Metal cords ran around her waist and chest, like cruel belts. When she heard him, she lifted her head. Her eyes were bright, more gold than brown, and full of fear. "Please," she whispered, voice rough and cracked. "Help me." The sound of it hit him like a heartbeat in a quiet room. He lowered the rifle, but did not put it away. He scanned the ridgelines, the wrecks, the sky. No drone sounds, no footsteps, no glint of glass where a scope might be. Only the wind and the small sound of her breathing. "Who tied you?" he asked, keeping his voice soft. "Hunters," she said. "They will come back." "How long?" he asked, and checked the wire at her ankles. "Since before sunrise," she said. "I lost count." He pulled a small tool from his belt and worked the wire. Her skin looked thin where the metal bit into it. He did not like the color of it. A dark bruise against violet skin. She watched his hands and tried not to shake. "You are human," she said, as if testing an old word. "Yes," he said, and kept cutting. "Then you are already in danger," she said. "If you help me, they will hunt you too." "Someone already hunts me," he said, with a short breath. "I might as well choose the reason." The wire snapped, and she pulled her legs close and hissed with pain. He looked up at the ropes around her wrists. The scaffold rose taller than a house, and the ropes went over a bent beam. He found the winch, rusted and stiff, and tried to turn it. It moved a little, cried out like a hurt animal, then stuck. He spat on his palm and tried again, slow and steady. The rope gave 1 inch, then 2, and her arms lowered a little. She clenched her teeth and closed her eyes. He kept turning, breath by breath, until he could reach the knot. "Look at me," he said, so she would not faint. "What is your name?" "Lisa," she said, and forced her eyes open. The knot was old and stubborn, but he slid the blade under it and cut. Her arms fell free, and she stumbled forward into him. Light as a shadow, he held her by the shoulders, so she did not hit the ground. Her skin was hot from the sun, and the violet color shifted when she moved. Like light through wine, he realized his hands were shaking, and he did not know why. "Drink," he said, and gave her his canteen. She drank too fast and coughed, and he took it back. "Slow," he said. "Slow, or you will be sick." She nodded and took another small sip. The gold in her eyes steadied, and she looked around like a hunted animal. "Will they see us here?" she asked. "Maybe," he said. "But there is a cut in the dunes west of here, a place to hide." She drew in a breath, short and painful. "Then we go now," she said. "Please." They started to move, but she stumbled again. The wires had chewed her ankles and left dark marks. Ryan the survivor became Ryan the carrier. He slipped her arm over his shoulder, and she leaned against him like a thin branch. The desert stretched ahead like a road that refused to end. He measured distance by broken masts, by shattered engines. By the way, the wind changed its songs. Halfway to the dune cut, the air trembled. Ryan knew that sound too well. The low hum that crawled under the skin. He turned his head and saw a dot rise from behind a ruined tower. A scout drone, small, fast, hungry. Lisa stiffened and gripped his sleeve. "They found me once because of the signal inside me," she said, voice shaking. "It calls to them like a beacon." "What signal?" he asked, scanning for cover. "An implant," she said. "A mark they left when they changed me." Her words made the heat feel colder. Even under the burning sun, Ryan moved faster, heart loud in his chest. He dragged her into a trough between dunes and pushed her down. He lay beside her and pulled a sand blanket from his pack, a thin sheet that hid heat. He spread it over them, and the world turned dim and close. The hum grew louder, then circled above. Sand fell in soft rains as the drone's wash stirred the air. Lisa was breathing too fast, and he touched her wrist to calm her. Her pulse jumped like a bird in a cage. "Breathe with me," he whispered. "Slow." They counted together, 4 in, 4 out, like waves on a quiet shore. The hum moved away, then came back sharper. The drone had caught a trace of heat or motion. Ryan slid the rifle to his chest and watched the shadow move across the fabric. If it swept low enough, he would have one shot. One shot was never enough for these drones. But sometimes luck enjoyed a fight. He thought about the voice that had called him. That small human sound in a place of metal. He did not regret walking toward it. Not yet. The shadow widened, as if the drone had paused. Lisa squeezed her eyes shut and whispered words he did not know. The hum rose, then dipped, then rose again like it was confused. Ryan held his breath and waited for the lance of blue that meant the end. Instead, the sound slid away toward the north. Fast as a hawk, he let his breath go and felt his hands start to shake again. He hated when that happened, because it meant his body had been braver than his mind. They waited 2 more minutes under the blanket. Then he lifted the corner and tasted the air. The sky was empty and bright, the wreck still, the wind small again. They stood and moved toward the cut in the dunes. Lisa's steps steadied, but she kept one hand on his shoulder. He noticed the lines on her arms, pale and thin under the violet skin. Not scars, not tattoos, something else. They seemed to shift as she walked, like light in shallow water. "What happened to you?" he asked at last. She answered without looking up. "They changed my blood," she said. "They called it a gift." He heard the quiet anger in her voice, and he recognized it. It was the kind that sits deep and waits. "Are you with the invaders?" he asked, and braced for the answer. "No," she said, and her voice broke on the word. "I was taken." He looked at her then, not with fear, but with a strange respect. She had begged for help like any human, and now she stood, broken, but not gone. They reached the cut in the dunes, where stone showed under the sand. There was an old pipeline there, half open like a mouth. Ryan led her inside and down a ladder that had lost some rungs. The air was cool and smelled like rust and old water. They moved along the tunnel until the sun was a small coin behind them. He set a light stick in the wall, and the small white glow made their shadows thin. "Sit," he said, and she did, hugging her knees. He cleaned the cuts on her wrists and ankles with the last of his water. She watched him in silence, and when he finished, she whispered, "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," he said. "We are not safe." She nodded and looked at the glow lines moving under her skin. "They will come," she said. "They always come." He wanted to ask why, but he already knew. People do not tie a beacon to a body unless the body is valuable. He sat across from her and rested the rifle on his legs. He studied her face, the human shape, the alien light, the tired courage. He felt that strange shake in his hands again and closed them into fists. He had pulled her up, and now his world had changed. He did not know if he had saved a victim or released a storm. He only knew the hook was set, and the line was pulling both of them forward. Somewhere above, the desert sang its thin song again. Far along the tunnel, a drip of water counted slow seconds. Lisa lifted her head, as if listening to something inside the stone. Her eyes went wider, and the gold in them brightened. "What is it?" he asked, voice low. "They are closer than I thought," she said. "And they are not alone." Ryan stood, and the tunnel felt tighter around his chest. He checked the magazine and the chamber, and the knife at his boot. He looked at her and saw fear, but also a spark that was not fear at all. "What are you?" he asked softly, as the earth above them trembled with distant steps. She met his eyes with a tired, honest gaze. "I was human," she said, "and I might be again." The tunnel lights shook. Sand sifted from the ceiling, and the drip of water quickened its count. Ryan lifted the rifle and moved to the corner where the tunnel bent. He did not know what would come around that bend, but he knew one thing with hard, simple certainty. He was no longer walking the desert alone, and whatever found them here would learn what a human could do. The stunned realization, the tunnel walls breathed with silence. Ryan stood ready, the rifle heavy in his hands. The light stick glowed weak on the rusted pipes, and shadows moved like they were alive. Behind him, Lisa sat against the wall, arms wrapped around her knees, golden eyes never leaving him. The sound of footsteps above faded, then returned in short bursts. Whoever hunted them was moving with purpose, not by chance. Ryan's ears caught the faint metal ring of claws or boots, too sharp to belong to a human. He kept his breath low, waiting for the first shape to break the tunnel's corner, but nothing came. The sound stopped, as if the desert itself was holding its voice. Ryan turned back to Lisa, and for the first time he really looked at her. Her face carried lines of pain, but also something deeper. Her violet skin shimmered faintly, as if light was alive under it. And then he noticed the veins. Not normal human veins, but thin glowing paths of amber fire running under her arms and neck. They pulsed gently, like a heart that beat in more than one rhythm. He felt the shock in his chest. She was human and not human at the same time. The voice, the begging, the fear, all too human. But the skin, the veins, the eyes, something else, something made. "You," he whispered. "What are you?" She met his stare, unblinking. "I don't know anymore," she said, "but I was not born like this." The words dropped heavy in the tunnel. Ryan kept silent, but his mind turned sharp. An experiment, he thought. A survivor of some alien hand. That meant she carried something the enemy wanted, and maybe something Earth itself had never seen. He crouched near her, the rifle across his knees. Her gaze followed his movements, searching his face. "Why did you help me?" she asked, voice soft but trembling. "Because you begged," he answered. "You begged like a human, not like a machine." Her lips parted as if she wanted to argue, but she closed them again. For a moment, silence grew between them, broken only by the drip of water. Then she lifted her hand, slowly, so he would not flinch. She pressed her palm against the tunnel wall, and something impossible happened. The veins in her skin glowed brighter. The wall itself began to hum. Rust fell away in flakes, and the pipe under her touch lit faintly with blue light. Ryan leaned forward, stunned. He had seen machines repair themselves. He had seen alien tech feed on light, but never had he seen a person command metal with a touch. She pulled her hand back, and the glow faded. The pipe remained scarred, but alive with a faint hum. "I can feel their machines," she said. "They sing in my blood." Ryan stared, words lost in the storm of his thoughts. "You are a weapon," he said at last. Her eyes closed, and a tear rolled down her violet cheek. "That is what they told me too," she whispered. "But I am not sure if I believe them." The silence cracked as the tunnel shook. From above came the grinding roar of engines. Not one but many. Dust rained down in thin streams, and the pipes groaned. Ryan stood again, rifle ready. "They found the pipeline," he said, voice steady but cold. Lysa rose too. Though her legs trembled, she put a hand on the wall again, her glow spreading out like thin roots under the metal. "Wait," she said. "Listen," and Ryan did, though his nerves screamed to run. Through the hum of machines and the groan of sand, he heard something else, a pattern. It was faint, like coded beats, like drums from far away. "That is not them," Lysa said, golden eyes burning brighter. "That is me, my signal." She pressed harder, and the glow ran further, deeper. The pipe sang louder. As if answering her blood, Ryan stepped back, unsure if the tunnel would collapse or ignite. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "Changing the call," she said, voice shaking. "They used me as a beacon, but I can twist it, bend it." Her body trembled with effort, and the glow along her arms burned hotter. The tunnel lights dimmed and then flared, as though the air itself was tied to her heartbeat. For a moment, Ryan saw her not as a victim, but as something far more dangerous. Not just hunted prey, but a storm walking in a human frame. And he felt the truth like a blade in his chest. He had pulled her up, freed her, and now he had no idea what he had unleashed. The roar above moved away for a heartbeat, then circled back. Whatever she was doing had not fooled them yet. Lysa staggered and caught herself on the wall. Blood ran from her nose, black against her violet skin. Ryan caught her shoulder and held her steady. "That's enough," he said. "You'll kill yourself." She looked at him, pain sharp in her eyes. "If I stop, they will find us anyway," she whispered. "If I continue, I might burn out." Her voice cracked, and he knew she was at the edge. He pulled her away from the wall and steadied her against his chest. "No more," he said, firm like stone. "We fight them as we are, not as they want you to be." Her golden eyes searched him, confused. "Why?" she asked. "Why protect me if I am dangerous?" Ryan checked the rifle, the last magazine, the knife at his boot. "Because," he said, "dangerous or not, you begged like one of us, and that means you are not theirs anymore." The words sank deep into her. Her shoulders shook, but not from weakness, from something else. Relief. She nodded, slow and quiet, and leaned against him. The roar above grew louder, engines cutting through sand. They were close now, too close. Ryan tightened his grip on the rifle and faced the tunnel's bend. Behind him, Lysa whispered one last warning. "They will not come to capture," she said, voice low. "They will come to erase us both." Ryan smiled without joy. "Then let them come," he said. "They will learn what it means to corner a human." The tunnel shook again, dust and light falling like rain. And in that moment, Ryan realized the truth that stunned him more than anything else. Not her skin, not her glow, not her alien veins. But the fact that in her broken voice and golden eyes, he had seen something still alive, something human, and that was more dangerous than any weapon the enemy could build. The chase. The tunnel no longer felt safe. The hum above turned to a roar, engines scraping against the silence of sand. Ryan pressed his ear against the pipe wall, his jaw set tight. The vibrations were not random. They had rhythm, a hunting rhythm. They were closing in. He looked back at Lisa, her face pale under the violet glow. Her golden eyes burned with fear and fire at the same time. "You cannot stay here," she whispered. "They will corner us like animals in a cage." He nodded once, the rifle across his chest. "Then we move," he said, voice steady. The tunnel bent west, narrow and dark. He led the way, boots silent on rust and sand. Lisa followed, every step unsteady but determined. The pipes above groaned, as if they too feared the weight of what hunted them. Behind, faint echoes multiplied. One engine became two. Two became many. They were coming. Ryan quickened his pace, but his mind never left the shadows. Every bend could hold a trap. Every grate could spit fire. He counted his ammo again. Only one magazine. Not enough for a swarm. Maybe enough for one chance. And chance was all humans had left in this broken desert. They reached an old service shaft, open like a wound in the wall. Ryan looked up and saw a faint line of light. The shaft climbed high, maybe to the surface. "Climb," he said. Lisa shook her head. "I am weak. I will slow you." He stared at her, eyes sharp. "Climb or die here." Her lips tightened, and she nodded. He slung the rifle and crouched. Giving her his back, she climbed on, light as a shadow, her arms trembling but strong enough. He rose, pushing her higher, her fingers catching the rungs. Step by step, she pulled herself upward, her veins glowing faint like a map of stars. Ryan followed close, one hand on her ankle to steady her. Above, the light widened, but so did the sound. Engines now mixed with the screech of metal limbs. The hunters had entered the tunnel. The first screech of claws hit the pipe wall below. Sparks scattered in the shaft like falling stars. Lisa gasped and nearly slipped, but Ryan caught her ankle and shoved her upward. "Don't stop!" he barked. She bit her lip until blood ran and climbed faster. Ryan followed, breath hard, the rifle slung but ready. Below, shadows swarmed, mechanical shapes with glowing eyes. Drones, fast and hungry. One leaped, claws scraping the shaft wall. Ryan twisted, drew the rifle, fired. The shot cracked like thunder in the metal throat. The drone screamed and fell, sparks bursting on the floor below. But more came, always more. The shaft filled with noise, iron screams and human breath. They reached the top, a grate half buried in sand. Ryan slammed his shoulder against it. Once, twice. The grate broke free with a scream of rust. Light poured in, golden and cruel. They crawled out into the desert, gasping. The sun blinded them for a moment, then shadows moved. The hunters had followed. Black shapes spilled from the shaft like insects. Claws tearing, eyes burning red. Ryan pulled Lisa to her feet and dragged her into the dunes. The sand burned under their boots, but it was freedom compared to the tunnel. Engines roared above, ships circling like vultures. One dove low, wind screaming from its wings. Ryan shoved Lisa down as the sand exploded. A beam scorched the air, missing by inches. Her scream cut the silence, but she rose again. Her veins glowed brighter, brighter than before. "I can distract them," she said, voice shaking but fierce. "No!" Ryan snapped. "They want you, not me. That means you stay alive." He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the broken ridges. Behind them, drones tore across the sand. Their claws dug deep, their red eyes fixed. The chase had begun. They ran through the wreckage field. Old engines, shattered towers, bones of war rising from the desert. Ryan ducked between twisted beams, dragging Lisa close. Lasers hissed past. Cutting steel like paper, he rolled behind a hull, lifted the rifle, fired. One drone burst in flame, another stumbled. But still they came, endless. The sky grew darker with the swarm of them. Faster, he said, though his chest burned. Lisa stumbled but kept moving. Her glow lit the shadows, a beacon he could not hide. Every hunter's eye locked on it. He cursed under his breath, but never let go of her hand. They reached the ridge, sharp rocks like teeth. Rian shoved her ahead. Climb! She clawed at the stone, her nails tearing, but she climbed. He followed, firing down at the swarm. The rifle cracked, one after another. Shells clattering, empty. He threw the rifle on his back and pulled his knife. The first drone leaped at him, metal jaws wide. He caught it, slammed the blade into its throat. It screamed and fell, but another took its place. Claws cut his arm, hot blood spilling. He gritted his teeth and shoved upward. Lisa reached down, glowing veins burning like fire. She grabbed his wrist and pulled. For a moment their hands locked. Her glow ran into his skin, not burning but warm. The pain in his arm dulled. His muscles surged with strange strength. He leapt higher, landing beside her. Together they stumbled over the ridge. Behind, the swarm howled, but the desert stretched wide before them. Ships circled, shadows chasing shadows. The sun bled red on the horizon. The chase was far from over, but in that breath, standing with her glowing hands still on his wrist, Rian felt something new. Not just fear, not just survival, but the start of a bond. One human, one changed, running together against the dark. And the hunters screamed as they followed. The desert sang with fire, and the chase carried on. The revelation, the desert did not rest. The wind rose sharp, cutting their faces with sand. Above, the sky was bruised red by the setting sun, and ships circled like shadows of vultures. Ryan and Lisa ran along the ridge, their steps heavy but unbroken. Every sound behind them told the same truth. The hunters had not given up. Ryan slowed only when he saw the mouth of a cave, hidden between rocks. It was narrow, black like a wound in the earth. He shoved Lisa inside first, then followed. The cool air wrapped around them, and the desert noise fell away. Darkness swallowed the glow of her veins until they became the only light inside. They sank against the cave wall, both gasping, both shaking. Ryan wiped sweat and blood from his brow. His arm throbbed where claws had cut deep. But when he looked down, the wound was not as raw as before. The pain had dulled, the bleeding slowed. He remembered the moment her hand had pulled him over the ridge. Her glow had entered him, filled him with strange fire. And now he saw the mark. Thin golden lines crawling faintly along his wrist. Fading but real. He stared at it in silence, his heart heavy. "You did this," he said, not a question. Lisa looked at his arm, then down at her own glowing hands. Her lips pressed tight, her eyes shadowed. "Yes," she whispered. "I cannot stop it." Ryan pulled his arm away, his voice sharp. "What are you really?" Her head dropped, hair falling like a curtain of pale gold. She hugged her knees, her shoulders trembling. "They made me," she said. "I was taken long ago, from a camp at the edge of the ruins." Her voice cracked, but she kept going. "They wanted to turn humans into something else, into a bridge between their machines and our blood." Her hand touched her chest, the glow pulsing faint under her skin. "I am that bridge," she said. "Part human, part machine, part something worse." Ryan listened, his jaw hard. He had heard whispers of the invaders' experiments, stories told around fires, but never had he seen the proof alive before him. Now it sat in the shadows of the cave, with golden eyes and trembling hands. He wanted to look away, but he could not. "They said I was a gift," Lisa continued, her voice low. "They said I would lead them to more, to turn all humans into weapons for their war. Her eyes rose, meeting his, burning with pain. But I ran, she said. I broke free, and now the beacon in my blood calls them back to me. Ryan's fist closed tight. So every time you breathe, they hear you, he said. She nodded once. Shame heavy in the motion. They will not stop until they have me, or until I am dead. Silence filled the cave, thick as stone. The drip of water echoed faintly from somewhere deeper inside. Ryan sat back, leaning against the wall. He stared at his arm again. The fading glow that should not exist. He hated it, and yet he felt stronger, steadier, because of it. He did not know if that strength was a gift or a curse. You saved me, Lisa said suddenly, voice breaking the silence. Why? She asked. You knew nothing about me. I could have been their spy, their trap. Ryan met her gaze, cold but honest. You begged, he said. And no machine begs like that. No trap cries with human fear. Her lips parted, and for the first time, a faint smile touched them. It was small, fragile, but real. The sound of engines drifted faintly above the cave. Ryan's head snapped up, his hand on the rifle. They're still searching, he said. Lisa stood too, though her legs shook. She touched the cave wall, and her glow spread across it. The stone hummed, faint lines of light crawling like veins across the rock. Ryan's eyes widened. You can feel through stone too, she nodded, her eyes distant. They are close, too close, but not yet on us. Her glow faded, and she fell back against the wall, weak. Ryan caught her before she slid to the ground. You burn yourself doing this, he said. She laughed bitterly. I was built to burn. He stared at her, feeling anger rise, not at her, but at what had been done. No, he said firmly. You are not their weapon. You are not their gift. His grip on her shoulders tightened. You are human first, no matter what they did to you. Her eyes softened, and tears glowed in the golden light. You speak like I still belong to your kind, she whispered. You begged, he repeated, voice low but fierce. And that was enough. For a moment, the cave seemed to hold its breath. The hunters searched above. The desert waited, and in that pause, something shifted between them. Not trust, not yet, but the beginning of it. Fragile like glass, but alive. Then the cave floor trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Stones cracked. Ryan grabbed the rifle, pulled Lisa close. What now? He hissed. She closed her eyes, her veins flaring bright. Her breath came sharp. They found us, she said. They are breaking the ground itself. The roar of engines filled the cave. The sound of claws scraped above, closer. Ryan steadied himself, knife in one hand, rifle in the other. Lisa leaned against the wall, her glow rising again. Her voice was steady now, calm like steel. If they take me, they win. If they kill me, they win. Her golden eyes locked on his. But if we fight together, maybe we change the story. The ground split, light poured in, and the hunters came. Black shapes dropping with claws and red eyes. Ryan raised his rifle, his heart steady. At his side, Lisa burned like a star in human skin. And in that fire was the truth. She was not only their weapon, she was their fear. The revelation was clear. She was not broken. She was not weak. She was a key. And the enemy wanted her, because they feared what would happen if she chose to stand with humans instead of them. The cave filled with screams of metal and fire, and the fight began. The cave smelled of smoke and burned metal. The ground was littered with the remains of drones, their broken bodies still glowing faintly. Ryan stood in the silence, chest heaving, rifle heavy in his hands. The last shot still rang in his ears, a ghost of thunder fading into dark. Lisa sat against the wall, her glow dim, her face pale. Her hands shook, not from fear, but from exhaustion. She had poured too much of herself into the fight. Every pulse of her strange power had torn through her body like fire. Now she looked fragile, more human than ever. Ryan moved to her side. Dropping his rifle, he tore a strip of cloth from his sleeve and wrapped her bleeding wrist. She watched him quietly, golden eyes soft. "You should leave me," she whispered, voice thin. "I am a beacon. I am danger to you." Ryan tied the knot tight and shook his head. "I don't leave people who beg for life," he said. "That is not what humans do." For a long moment they said nothing. The cave was quiet, but alive, breathing with the drip of water and the faint hum of broken machines. Lisa leaned her head back, eyes closed. "You speak of humans as if they are more than they are," she murmured. "They are," Ryan replied. "They are more than machines, more than slaves, more than prey." He sat across from her, his back against the stone, his knife on his knee. "I have seen men die just to save strangers. I have seen mothers give their last food to children not their own. That is humanity." Her lips parted, her eyes opening again. "You fight for each other," she said, almost in wonder. Ryan nodded once. "That is why we are still here." Her gaze lowered to the glow under her skin. "They tried to take that from me," she whispered. "They tried to strip me of what I was. But you look at me like I am still someone. You are," he said firmly. "You begged. You hoped. That is human enough for me." Her throat tightened, and she turned her face away, hiding tears. He pretended not to see, giving her that small piece of pride. Instead, he pulled out the canteen and handed it to her. "Drink slow," he said. "We might need to move soon." She sipped carefully, her hands steadier now. Her eyes studied him, curious. "You could have left me tied in the desert," she said. "You had no reason to risk yourself." "I did," he answered. "My reason was simple. I could not ignore a voice begging like that." She tilted her head, her hair catching the faint glow of her veins. "You are strange," she whispered. "So I've been told," he said with a faint smile. The moment softened, like a fragile truce between storm and silence. For the first time since he found her, Ryan saw not a weapon, not an experiment, but a woman, tired, broken, but alive. And Lisa saw not a stranger, not a hunter, but a man who carried his humanity like armor. It was a bond, small and new, but it glowed brighter than the light under her skin. A rumble outside reminded them that the desert had not forgotten. Engines drifted like ghosts across the sky, searching, circling. "They will not stop," Lisa said quietly. "They will chase us until I am taken. Then we don't run forever," Ryan replied. "We find a way to break them." She studied him, her eyes narrowing. "You speak like one man can stand against armies." "One man can," he said, "if he has reason enough." Her breath caught, and she looked away again. For a moment, she felt something heavy in her chest. Not fear, not pain, but something she had thought stolen from her. Hope. It was small, fragile, but alive. The night grew colder in the cave. Ryan lit a small fire from old scraps of wood and metal. The glow warmed the air, mixing with the soft shine from Lisa's veins. They sat close, sharing the heat. The silence between them was no longer heavy. It was gentle, like two strangers learning they might not be strangers forever. "Tell me," she said softly. "Tell me of humans. Tell me something true." Ryan stared into the fire, his face hard, but his voice softer than she expected. "My father used to say, humans are strongest when they stand for someone else." He poked the fire with a shard of metal. He died proving that, in a raid, he held the line so others could escape. Lisa listened, her golden eyes shimmering in the firelight. "He chose to die so others lived," she said. "That is what makes you strong." Ryan nodded once, his jaw tight. "That is what makes us human," he said. The fire cracked, sparks rising like stars. Lisa leaned her head against the wall, her voice soft. "I was human once. I was someone's daughter. Someone's friend. I remember laughter. I remember the smell of bread. I remember a song. Her voice broke, her hands trembling. And then I was taken, and I thought all of that was gone, buried under what they made of me. She looked at him, her tears catching the firelight. But you remind me it is still inside me. Ryan leaned forward, his voice steady. Then hold on to it. No machine can erase it unless you let them. Her lips trembled, and then she smiled, small and fragile. I will try, she whispered. They sat in silence after that, letting the fire speak. Outside the desert waited, the hunters prowled. But inside the cave, a bond had formed, not perfect, not complete, but strong enough to matter. When sleep finally pulled at them, Ryan stayed awake, his rifle close. He watched Lysa drift into rest, her glow dimming but never fading. She looked almost peaceful, almost like the human she once was. And he made a silent promise in that moment. He would keep her alive, not because she was a weapon, not because she carried strange power, but because she begged like a human, and that made her one of them. The night stretched long, the fire low, but the bond between them burned brighter than either could admit. And in the shadows of the cave, it felt like the beginning of something the enemy could never understand. The betrayal. The fire had burned to embers. The cave was quiet except for the soft crack of ash and the distant moan of desert wind. Ryan sat awake, rifle across his lap, his eyes fixed on the mouth of the cave. He had not slept. He could not while the hunters circled like wolves in the night behind him. Lysa stirred, her glow faint but steady. She dreamed in whispers, words broken and strange. Her body twitched now and then, as if fighting shadows only she could see. Ryan glanced back once, and in that moment, he felt the weight of what she was. A girl turned into something more, something less, something caught between, but still human enough to dream. The night passed slow. When dawn came, the desert light crept into the cave, pale and sharp. Lysa woke with a start, her eyes glowing faint gold in the half-dark. She looked at him confused. You did not sleep, she said. Ryan shook his head, his voice dry. I do not sleep when death is this close, she frowned, touched his arm. You are only human. You need rest. He pulled away gently, not unkind but firm. I will rest when we are safe. The day grew hotter. They ate little, shared water, spoke less. Ryan kept scanning the cave mouth, his ears tuned for engines or claws, but silence stretched, too perfect, too strange. It was then that he heard it, a faint sound, not from outside but inside the cave. He turned his head, slow, careful. Lysa was at the far wall, her hand pressed against stone. Her veins glowed brighter, pulsing, and a soft vibration hummed through the rock. Stop, Ryan said sharply. Her hand snapped away, but the glow in her skin lingered. She looked at him, her eyes wide. I was only listening, she said quickly. Only trying to feel if they are near. Ryan rose, moving closer, his rifle low but ready. Then why speak? He asked, voice flat. Her lips parted, confusion crossing her face. Speak, she repeated. You were whispering, Ryan said. Not to me, to someone else. Her breath caught, her eyes flashing with panic. No, she said. I swear, I spoke to no one. But Ryan's gut twisted, his instincts sharp. He had lived too long in war to ignore a feeling like that. He stepped closer, and she backed against the wall. Tell me the truth, he demanded, his voice low but iron. Are you guiding them to us? Her golden eyes filled with hurt. Do you think I want them here? She cried. Do you think I would beg you for life just to betray you? His finger brushed the trigger, his eyes cold. I think you were made to serve them, whether you want it or not. Her face broke, tears spilling. Yes, she whispered. They made me. They mocked me, but I ran. I chose to run. She held her glowing arms up, trembling. This is not loyalty. This is a curse. The silence between them stretched sharp as a blade. Ryan's chest rose and fell with heavy breath. He wanted to believe her, but doubt gnawed at him. Every whisper, every glow, every strange hum could be a signal. She could be the trap he feared from the start. Finally, he lowered the rifle, but his eyes stayed hard. One lie. "And I end this," he said coldly. She nodded, tears shining. "I understand," she whispered. "I would not blame you." They sat apart after that. The bond from the night before cracked. Fragile now, Ryan cleaned his knife, checked his gear, all while watching her from the corner of his eye. She sat silent, hugging her knees, the glow under her skin faint like dying embers. Hours passed. Then the sound came again. A faint vibration in the stone. Ryan froze, his eyes cutting to her, but she was not touching the wall. Her hands were on her lap. The hum grew, steady, rising. It was not her this time. It was them. The ground shook, dust falling from the ceiling. Engines roared above, claws scraped rock. Ryan jumped to his feet, rifle ready. Lisa stood too, fear and fury in her eyes. "They have found us," she whispered. Ryan's jaw tightened. "Did you call them?" he asked one last time. Voice like stone. Her gaze met his, fierce and broken. "No," she said. "But they will never stop coming." The cave mouth split with light. Hunters poured in, claws flashing, eyes red with hunger. Ryan fired, the crack of his rifle filling the dark. Lisa screamed, her glow bursting bright. Together they stood, side by side, but the doubt remained, sharp and silent, a shadow between them that even fire could not burn away. The battle raged, the cave thundered, and Ryan knew one truth. Even if she was not the enemy's spy, even if she meant every word she said, one day he would have to decide to trust her or to kill her. That was the betrayal that hung between them, not hers, but the one he might be forced to make. The final stand. The cave burned with light and smoke. Hunters filled the stone mouth, their claws scraping, their eyes red like fire in the dark. Ryan stood at the front, rifle roaring, each shot cracking through the tunnel air. Shells clattered to the ground, his breath steady but heavy. Beside him, Lisa glowed like a living star, her veins burning brighter than ever, her hands trembling as she pushed her strange power into the stone. The walls shook with her touch. The ground hummed like a drum of war. The hunters faltered, some sparks bursting as metal cracked under her influence. But more poured in, endless, crawling like shadows given shape. Ryan slammed a fresh magazine into his rifle, teeth grit tight. He fought like a man who knew death but did not fear it. His knife gleamed when the bullets ran low, his arms strong, his strikes sharp. Every move screamed the same truth. Humanity did not bow. Lysa screamed, her voice raw, her glow tearing through the cave. Beams of blue light ripped across the ceiling, stone cracking. She threw her hands forward, and a wave of energy burst outward. The first line of hunters shattered, their bodies twisting and falling. But the power tore through her too, her legs buckling, her skin burning from within. Ryan caught her before she fell, his arm around her shoulders. "Stay up," he shouted. "We are not done." Her golden eyes met his, filled with pain and fire. "They will not stop," she whispered. "They will bury us both." The cave shook again. From above, engines roared, louder, heavier. A larger shape cast shadow through the broken ceiling. A warship, black as night, lowering into the desert. Its cannons glowed, ready to erase the cave and all inside. Ryan's heart pounded. This was no longer a fight to escape. It was the end. He dragged Lisa deeper into the tunnel, but she pulled away. "No," she said, her voice steady now. "Running will change nothing." She placed her hand against the ground, her glow spreading far, faster. brighter. The stone hummed. The air shook. The walls cracked. "You cannot do this," Ryan said, panic sharp in his voice. "It will kill you." She looked at him, and for the first time her lips curved into a true smile. "I was made to burn," she said, "but maybe I can choose what I burn for." His chest tightened, anger and grief twisting inside. "You are not theirs anymore," he said fiercely. "Don't give them the end they wanted." Her hand touched his cheek, warm and shaking. "You pulled me up," she whispered. "You reminded me I was still human. Let me fight as one." The warship above charged its cannon, the glow pouring down into the cave. Hunters swarmed forward, screeching. Ryan lifted his rifle, his knife, his body ready. But Lisa stood ahead of him, her glow rising until it hurt to look. She spread her arms wide, and the veins under her skin burned like rivers of fire. The cave roared with power. A wave of light burst out, slamming into the hunters, ripping through their bodies. The warship above shuddered, its engines faltering, its glow stuttering. Stone cracked and split. Sand rained down. Ryan covered his head, his body thrown back by the force. The desert itself seemed to scream. When the light dimmed, silence fell. The hunters lay broken, their red eyes dark. The warship tilted in the sky, fire spilling from its engines. It groaned like a dying beast and fell, crashing into the dunes with thunder. Smoke rose high into the morning air. For the first time, the desert was quiet. Ryan pushed himself up, his ears ringing, his body bruised. "Lisa," he called, his voice raw. She lay on the ground, her glow flickering weak, her chest rising shallow. He crawled to her, pulled her into his arms. Her golden eyes fluttered open, dim but still alive. "You did it," he whispered, his voice breaking. She smiled faintly, blood on her lips. "No," she whispered back. "We did." Her glow faded, the veins dimming. Ryan held her tighter, his jaw clenched. "Stay with me," he begged. "Don't you leave now." Her fingers touched his wrist, where faint golden lines still glimmered from when she had shared her power. "You carry me," she whispered, "even if I fall." Her eyes closed, her body limp, her glow gone. Ryan's chest shook, grief sharp. He laid her down gently, his hand lingering on her face. The desert wind blew through the broken cave, carrying the smell of smoke and fire. He stood slowly, lifting his rifle, his eyes hard. The warship burned in the distance. Wreckage scattered across the sand. The hunters were dead. But more would come. They always came. He looked down at Lisa one last time, his voice steady. "You begged, and I answered. Now I will fight for what you gave me." He turned toward the horizon, the rising sun painting the sky gold. His steps were heavy, but his heart burned with fire. He was human, and he carried her light now, and whatever came next, the enemy would learn. They had not broken them. They had only begun a war. The desert stretched endless before him, and Ryan walked into it, carrying the memory of a woman who was once human, who chose to fight as human again. It was not the end. It was the beginning.